Hello, welcome. I am out here at my coop. You're gonna hear some bird sounds, sadly. They do be making the noise by the coop. And I thought I would just do an update on some of our coop updates and then also maybe just give you a general tour of my chicken setup. Come here, Goose. This is Goose. Maybe Goose can help us. She is a little chicken that I raised from a baby. She was a singleton, so I had to socialize with her a little more because chickens are social and they can get sad as little chicks if they're alone, so she's very people friendly. Anyway, so I'm gonna give you a little tour of my little chicken setup, stuff we've improved, why I made those decisions, and maybe some changes I'm still gonna be making in the future. Also, she wears a little saddle right now because I don't have enough hens and the roosters are making their back bald, but her back's healed up pretty good, but I'm leaving it on until the baby hens are older. Anyway, let's begin. So here is just my feed area. This trash can has random feeders and stuff in it right now because it's actually a nesting box. It was a trash can, but I've learned something about myself is that if I have a trash can, I'm gonna fill it to the brim and then it's just gonna get everywhere. So instead now I just throw things away as I have them. So I was using it as a nesting box because they really like it. But then I had Goose actually being super broody in it and it was getting too hot. So I had to fill it with a bunch of stuff to get her to stop just sitting in there on nothing. But anyway, so that's the trash can situation, and then I have these metal trash bins that are held off the ground to help with moisture. Not that there really is any because it's a covered area. But I have different bins with scoops in them just to make it easy. But I'll usually do stuff like cat food for a treat in the winter. I do scratch grains sometimes. I haven't been feeding it lately because I want them to primarily eat their chicken feed. It has a lot more protein and nutrients in it, and I don't want them filling up on scratch grains. And then I have the other two bins, which is their main feed. It is an all-flock feed because I have roosters and geese and ducks, and I don't want the overabundance of calcium that's in layer feed, and I just provide calcium supplement on the side. So that is my feed bin situation. This is the same as it's always been, maybe slightly different from when I first moved in, but that's just how that's set up. So over here is my watering system, mostly for the chickens, and I have some ducks that will use this, but it's a 50-gallon food-safe water barrel. I put this cover over to help with the sunlight, but then also to kind of help insulate it a little bit in the winter. I can take the top off to clean it off or clean it out when I need to. I put these on top because I don't like the chickens sitting up here and pooping on it. But I can also run this, which I actually need to take this out, but I can put like a water heater in it for the winter, and that worked really well this last winter. And there are these little nipples down here where the chickens can like push on it, and you can see, I don't know if you can see, but there's water dripping out. The chicken's really good at using it. The baby chicks have started using it. Oh, she's even drinking right now. She's like, hell yeah. But this is just a way to have fresh water for the chickens at all times, no matter what, especially on these hot days. You don't want to go without water. And the problem with having ducks and geese and waterfowl with chickens is the ducks and geese are going to make the water disgusting in like seconds. And not only that, but they're going to be sitting in it and they're going to be splashing it out everywhere. So the chickens might not be able to access the water because the ducks and geese are guarding it, or they're going to splash all the water out, it's going to dry up, and then there's no water. And then also it's just dirty. So this is just an option to always have fresh water that the ducks cannot mess up, and they're not going to particularly be that interested in it compared to the stuff they can put their face in. So I always have this available. It lasts so long. I'll usually empty it out once a month, and it still has some water in there, but I usually like to wait until it's kind of lower to empty it because it's kind of heavy. And then I'll just refill it, and there's always fresh water. And then the winter, this is really nice because they always have thawed out water from this. Even the nipples stayed de-thawed in negative 15-degree weather because the heater sits low and it's keeping that warm. So really like this system for me. I've had this since last fall, I think. So I've gone through a winter with it, really like it. Nothing super new, but yeah. And I keep it here because I have electric right there, so it's easy to plug in for the heating in the winter. Something to note right here is just this is like an auto feeding thing. You put food in it and they're able to stick their heads in these ports. These are really small, These are what I used when my flock was way tinier and I had a really small setup. I'm going to be upgrading to one of those feed silos. They're not the most affordable, but for my setup, it just was like kind of a nice looking thing, and I liked that it was on spindly legs, so if there were any varmints, it'd be harder for them to climb up. Other options are you can just shut the fuck up. Other options are you can just buy the ports and then put them in trash cans and stuff, and then you have like tons of pounds of feed available at all times for maybe 50 bucks. Anyway, so this is my general feed setup. This is typically what I feed out of. I'm probably gonna leave these up even after I get the auto feeder because I have one bantam chicken at this point, but anything like babies, bantam chickens, or if I wanna feed like scraps or anything like that, this is just like a nice way to like put that in a container off the ground. The reason too I want to switch to more of an auto feeding situation now that I have kind of my predator situation a little figured out is I have such a variety of birds that whenever they're hungry they start to guard this area, but if I have feed out all the time I hope that they're going to stop guarding so much, so that's why I had that little one out again to test that theory, and it does seem to be working. As you can see, none of the guineas are over here guarding it. That was the biggest issue, the guineas were bullying the chickens off of it. Anyway, keeping that there. So now we're moving on to one of my newest actual additions. That was a this year project and I'm really happy got done. And it's really been nice and I've used it since I built it. And this is my outdoor brooder. It is a 2-story brooder and it has wire mesh flooring and wire mesh around so you get a lot of like good airflow, and also any droppings are just going to go straight through the floor onto the ground. It has some wood bracing in the bottom with the wire mesh so that I can put waters and feeders in there. I'm still experimenting with what I prefer, but for now I'm just using traditional waters and feeders. So yeah, I'm going to show you how it functions. So basically I can open up this door, it just slides. It's a little sticky because it's wood, but it works for what it is. And I can put the water in, put the feed in, mess with them or whatever if I need to catch somebody. And then I can just close it back up. The only thing I would change, there's a couple changes I'd make after, because I kind of designed this without knowing much, is I'd maybe have them cut a notch here so whenever I closed it, it would push the shavings out, but all I have to do is this. You can see on this bottom door, it fills with some shavings because I recently had someone down there, and then I can close it and all those shavings just kind of fall out the bottom. So I would probably mimic that in the top if I were to redo something or modify it again. The outdoor brooder then also has this, see, it's a closed wood section. The walls are all enclosed around it to have more of a breezeless area. And when you open it, it's this area that has the heat lamp. So it has a place where it can trap heat. The floor is solid wood, so it'll trap the heat. And then there is a lower wall here between the two where they can go in and out between the cool side and the hot side. So they can warm up here. This is good for like early spring or late fall if I have babies that need to be warm. Or if I have a sick chicken or a sick bird, it has an option to get warm. I don't know if I would use it so much because it's not good to make them that warm whenever the weather's super cold. But anyway, it's good for babies. And I can put wood shavings in here and then just kind of swipe them out. And with them going over here on the cool side to poop and then coming over here, it doesn't really get as messy and doesn't need to be changed as much. But even if I do, it's super easy to change this. Also, something else I like is this heat lamp is secured by a carabiner and screwed in. So there's really minimal chance that this could ever drop and cause any problems. So that's been really nice. So I did use this with baby chicks and it worked super well, exactly how I wanted it to. All of my chicks stayed super healthy and I had extremely minimal cleanup ever. As it gets used, it's gonna look a little dingy just because that's just farm stuff. Poop gets on it, whatever. It just is what it is, but it is inherently pretty clean. This bottom level is mostly for sick chickens or things that I need to isolate or separate either to sell or to doctor. This way they can still be seen by the flock, and also all the waste still goes to the bottom. They can be seen by the flock. There's a similar heat lamp situation in case I want to put babies in the bottom, but the floor is open on the bottom here just because it's more intended for adult birds and They don't really need the wood floor insulation. I can put something in there, and wood chips. As you can see, I had some wood chips that got spread out if I want to. I recently had a injured duck. She had sprained her foot. I put her in there just to minimize her movement. She got better and I let her go. Other uses I've had it for recently is I had broody chickens and I put them in here to break them of their broodiness. So I put minimal comfortable spots. I take away any eggs. And after it took a week actually to break this hen of being broody. She finally quit trying to brood. The only reason I would break a brood after a certain point is because it gets too hot. I don't want them sitting in their nest, not eating, not drinking, overheating for no reason. In the early spring, I kind of let them just go through it and break it on their own, but around this time of year, I don't let anyone be broody anymore. So that's the purpose of the bottom floor. So the only real changes I would make if I were to do this again, I would do that notch so that it functions the same way as the bottom, but then two, I would probably add a shelf between these two levels so that I could have maybe double the babies going on, because I could put babies up here and babies down here. When they're small enough, the likelihood that the poop is gonna fall on the other one's pretty small. The only thing is sometimes it gets in the waters and stuff at the bottom, so that's the only addition I would make, is I'd probably put a shelf between them. The way it's built right now, it's not super practical, but if I wanted to. Why? All the geese are screaming for some reason. So anyway, that's the brooder. It's worked super well. It's been super hygienic for sick birds, for baby birds. I recently moved my baby birds and I will show you where I moved them. So this is the new coop setup. There are a lot of flies, unfortunately. That just is what it is. Some changes I made to the coop. I'll show you what it looked like before. It was kind of bare bones. I had to use roosting bars and it just wasn't my favorite because it's not super easy to get in here and scoop all of that pine shaving out and replace it constantly. And then the deep litter method was not working well for me as far as how my coop setup was. It just was it just wasn't working properly. There was always an odor. My chickens were sick earlier in the year, as you know, and I do believe the way the coop was set up and how the pine shavings are contributed to that. So I needed something more hygienic and easier to manage for me as someone who doesn't have heavy equipment and doesn't have the openings to just use it to scoop things out. So my solution was to put sand back in the coop. I've had sand in the coop before and I didn't like it because I used the wrong kind of sand, but this time I got the right kind of sand. It's an all-purpose or construction sand that was washed. It's been much better. It has larger particles and it was washed, so it's not as dusty. It is a little dusty, but not nearly as bad as the play sand. So I got sand put in. I also I moved the nesting boxes to the right, and one of the issues I was having with my old coop is the nesting boxes were higher than some of the roost bars, so then people were they were roosting in the nest boxes and making a mess in there, so when they're sleeping at night, they poop a lot, so I was just getting tons of poop in my nesting boxes, which is unhygienic for the chickens and for the eggs. So that was just one more thing I had to clean. Now that the nesting box is lower than all the roost bars, no one is doing that anymore. Another major change I've made in here is the roosting bar situation. So I raised all of the available roosting bars up higher than the nesting boxes, and I've made them have a shelf on the bottom, and then underneath all of that is a separate caged area. So I wanted the separate caged area for brooding chickens or sick chickens or for new chickens as a way to introduce them to the flock and be able to manage them easy while also being predator proof. So this has two doors that open. I can get food and water. The sand is nice in there because it's easy to clean up. And this is where I moved all of my baby chickens when they were done with the brooder. This is also where I kept my brooding hen with her babies. So I just combined those groups when they were big enough as a way to start introducing them at ground level to the flock and also get them used to the microbiome that's going on in here. As you can see, I've left the doors open. I'm letting the babies explore now, but I've had zero issues at introducing them to the flock, which has been nice because the flock has had plenty of chance to get their eyes on them and kind of go in and out. I'm kind of just leaving this open as like a way for the babies to come and escape if they need to, but I haven't seen any adults bullying them, so that's been good. But another benefit of having this and then having this shelf is when all of the chickens roost at night, most of the poop that's going to be in your coop is from when they're roosting. Chickens poop a ton when they sleep. So they'll all roost up here and they're all going to poop down onto this shelf. And on this shelf I have a layer of sand and then I put tarps on top. So the tarps, they're gonna poop on the tarps, and then every morning I can come in, hose them off, dry them off in the sun, and then put them back before nighttime. And it keeps it super clean in here. It reduces how much feces are in here by a ton. It makes my cleanup super easy too, because all I have to do is pull these down and then go spray them instead of sitting here and scooping. I do have a layer of sand underneath in case anyone comes in during the day and poops, but then also in the winter, I don't know how well the tarps are gonna work, so they'll still be able to poop on the sand, and I can scoop that out, and that'll be maybe a winter routine. Another benefit of keeping the poop cleaned out from this is it reduces the flies by a lot. So while there are flies in here, it's not nearly as bad as when there's pine shavings. There's just less places and food for the flies to be attracted to. So yeah, already cleaned, no poop. I do need to get some weights because the way this window is, it keeps blowing the tarps up. So that is one thing I need to deal with. But overall, huge improvement. I've noticed my chickens are sneezing less. I've noticed that no one is getting sick as much. I also had to deworm all of them, which I do think is just from the uncleanliness of the last setup. So things are just gonna be cleaner now, hopefully less disease now, and also there's plenty of roost space for everyone, and they all get to be up high and comfortable. So that has been great. No one's roosting in the nesting boxes anymore. I'm gonna show you a couple other things going on in the coop that are nice functions. Up here, above my nesting boxes, I have this nice ventilation fan. It helps keep it from being hot in here, so it's up high, so heat rises, it sucks it out, but then also super helpful for ammonia buildup. Ammonia is a gas that is from like stuff like poop and urine. So if there is any ammonia buildup or spike, you know, it's a gas that rises, it accumulates on the top of the coop, but this will suck it out, and I should never really have an issue with that. And there's also nice airflow coming from the window here, the window here. In the winter, I like to close these windows up, so there's actually a cut gap between, so this is covered with plastic, but there's a small gap here on this door, so it's up high, so whenever that fan's going in the winter, it's only gonna suck and have a breeze from the top. It's not gonna create a draft, and it's going to still keep the air fresh in here. So that's what's nice. Oh, a small note about the sand, which is kind of nice, is when I want to prop this door open, all I have to do is open, because this closes on its own. When I just want to prop this open, I just kind of move some sand here. I don't know, it's just little stuff. Another thing with my coop, which this has been like this since I moved in, because I don't know, this is like the first thing that I know to do, is I switched my door to an automatic door. So this is actually the automatic door motor. It can go based off of light or a timer. I set a timer because in this area, this like inside space, I don't know how reliable the light sensing is. So I just put on a timer and then I can adjust it. I have them come out a little later, around like 7 a.m. because I want to make sure that all of the predators have gone to bed. And then I'll have it close at a certain time of night just in case I've gone out for the night. It'll close, everyone who went in is safe, and then when I get home, if anyone didn't go to bed, I will then herd them inside. They're usually safe. It's usually 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. is like the danger time, so as long as I'm home before then, it's fine. But at least I know if I'm out late or can't make it home, everyone is safe who went inside, so the majority are safe. So coming back outside, there are 2 windows on my coop that were already there before I got here. If it were me and I would have done this, I would have made all of them really high up just for the draft issue. But in the summer, this is really nice because it makes it super airy in there, so it's not really ever like a hot box. But something I changed about the windows is I added these frames, which are not done yet, but I wanted to show you anyway. I added these frames, and I'm gonna put plastic behind them because in the winter, I will seal up the windows to keep the cold wind out so there's not a cold draft, so that the coop is actually a warmer place to go into and escape the wind. But I would have to drill this is actually some of it, I'd have to drill the plastic into the wood frame, and not only would it damage the wood frame every time, it wasn't super efficient, and sometimes it would rip off. And it's just kind of a hassle, and sometimes there'd be a nice day and it would just not be ideal. So with this, I can open it and close it based on if it's cold or warm. It's also nice because while this is covered, my other window is not, and if the wind is blowing in, it actually gets water in the coop, so it'd be nice to be able to close it on those days I know it's gonna storm. But I can open it, and there is a chain here, and I would be able to have it stay open, but then also it acts kind of as a ceiling. So the other window I will take you to and kind of show you why that is really beneficial for that window. But this is just the mechanism, and eventually that'll be the plastic. And then in the winter, I'm gonna have a way to clip these tight so the wind can't, you know, rip these open or make them flap around. Julian is taking a dust bath. So this is my other window. This is one of my problem windows because whenever it's raining and storming, the wind can come in and it gets water in my coop, and also it creates a draft in the winter. So the plastic's gonna be really helpful to be able to close this on really stormy days, but then also I can bring this up here, clip it, and it acts kind of like a nice roof to keep just like drizzles out, but then let air flow through still. So that'll be nice for this side and to keep moisture out of the coop. It shouldn't be there. Maybe you can see deformed goose before I go. He does not like this. Yeah. Anyway, here's the deformed goose. He is alive and well and a hater of the person who takes care of him. That's okay. So another update I've done is this chicken area came with a dog fencing around it as like a chicken run area. I kept it up because it's really convenient to herd them into here, trap them, and have a smaller space to catch everyone. And the last owners had let some weeds grow up, and some of those were some very aggressive invasive trees. I can't remember what they're called. I don't know. Anyway, there's some young trees growing, and I decided this year it was either to cut them down, or I had this idea of I bent them and made an archway and tied them in the middle. So I did that all the way down as much as I could until I got to this end. So now there's just like this leaf tunnel, and it worked really well. I do need to come through here, and I want to trim up some of this or just tie it up. So like maybe do that to bring it up and give it a little more density, even though I don't think any of the branches in here are gonna survive next year just because of the lack of sunlight. But yeah, just come in, clean this up, and then every year just shave the top so that the tunnel doesn't get like, you know, tunneled and grow. So that's just something I'm gonna have to manage a little bit, but I really think that this turned out really cool, and it provides a ton of shade. So when you come in here, it actually feels pretty cool. So you'll see the ducks and geese were hanging in here before I came in. They like to come in here to cool off. There's also like random ditches in the ground because the chickens will come, they'll dig up some dirt and lay in it. So that's something else I did this spring before all the leaves grew in. And yeah, it turned out pretty cool. All right, so while the sun blinds me, the last thing I'm gonna talk about is we put in this nice fence, and I planted some wildflowers around it. I have some horrible weeds like bindweed growing here on the fence, but other than that, I have some cool wildflowers growing around it. My goal is to get wildflowers around the entire chicken area as like kind of a cool pollinator way to decorate around the chicken fence and make it look nice. But as you can see, it's real wood posts and some nice 2x4 wire, and then there's electric wire going along the top. So it's helpful with the possums. I haven't had an issue with them since I've installed this. I have had an issue with a fox, but that has just been a matter of putting the birds away at night more religiously. But overall, it helps keep the chickens in and things I don't like out, and it's just aesthetically nice compared to what it was, which was just a temporary wire fencing. All right, so that is my chicken area. Those are some improvements we made. Some stuff I still want to do is I need to clean up some spare stuff like cages and stuff and get those rehomed. The old roosting bars, find a new place for those, clean up some trash, get the new auto feeder, and eventually I'd like to add a pond for the ducks and geese that's in this area, just so that they have a way to swim and stuff and I'm not having to refill water bowls constantly. So yeah, that's it. I hope to maybe show some more updates in the future, see if we ever get the pond put in, but we have tons of fish to fry all the time. And with that, I will leave you with a goose text.